Hi, what's going on, kiddos? We are starting a new segment on our exclusive YouTube content called Uncensored Horror. You've got all three of us horror nerds just spilling our guts and talking about spilled guts. This week we're going to be talking about 90s slashers, because who doesn't love a throwback?
Hello, UCR. What's your favorite scary movie?
'80s and '90s slashers are the best subgenre of horror.
Well, I think it's why we're all excited for Scream 5, isn't it? Because that's the one that kicked off the 90s horror trend was Scream.
It revived it did not kick it off, but it revived it. It gave it a
because remember during the 90s then we had all of these like Scream clones then, and that was like the slasher, that really tongue-in-cheek, like almost satire, but I'm not.
I mean, before that, what did you have? You had like what, Leprechaun and Child's Play?
New Nightmare. I think New Nightmare came out early.
New Nightmare was the 90s.
Yeah.
So you've got to realize that by this time in the major franchises, we were up to Jason Goes to Hell. We were up to the Curse of Michael Myers. We were up to Freddy's Dead. There we go.
You forget the one Halloween movie that everyone wants to forget from the 90s. Resurrected. H2O.
That's 2000.
I love H2O.
No, it's not. It's 99.
Resurrection's
Resurrection's vile.
Resurrection's the 2000s because
I'm sorry, H2O was 98.
H2O was 98.
Sorry,
that was post Scream.
It was, but it was still terrible.
That was a Scream clone. They're even using the music from Scream.
They used Scream 2, didn't they? Or
Scream?
No, Scream 1. It was the Tatum chase music they used for the chase scene in H20.
Weren't they watching? They were watching Scream.
Oh yeah, they were watching Scream 2 with the scene with Sarah Michelle Gellar.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, Scream 2 was 97. So
okay. Come on. Sorry, that's my award-winning Michelle Williams impression.
Poor little Michelle Wills.
Wait.
No, look, they did her bad. She should have been brought back for that new movie. But anyway, we're not talking about recalls. We're talking about 90s slashers. So yeah, it was before Scream. We were in a pretty very, very bland and dire state for those major slashers.
This is going to get me in a lot of trouble, but I don't like the Child's Play franchise. I really don't. He's not scary, okay? He's a fucking
He's not
doll.
scary, but it was fun. I like the first three, and I didn't mind Bride of Chucky, but Bride of Chucky was really taking it, and that we're going to take the piss
horror
out
comedy.
of it.
Yeah.
Bride of Chucky was good because of Jennifer Tilly. Fight me.
Yeah. No, it was good, and I agree. Jennifer Tilly made it. I think Seed of Chucky after it was a bit too, that's when they went too crazy.
I couldn't even watch it. No, I love Jennifer Tilly.
Best part of Bride of Chucky.
It's so good.
I've gotta go. Don's on TV and Gina Gershon is fingering me again.
I just like Jennifer.
Did you see Katie, the Curse of Chucky, and then the
really good Katie?
It's actually really good.
The new one is the last Chucky movie I watched. I lied.
Curse
I watched
of Chucky
remake.
and Cult of Chucky. They're actually really good.
Yeah.
The remake is terrible. And you know what? I love Aubrey Plaza. I love her so much, but not even she could save that movie. It was terrible.
Those last two movies make all the movies before it canon. So the whole series is actually one story.
A bit of that darker kind of,
and it goes back to being a horror movie, and then the last movie goes very psychological horror, where you're like, what is actually happening? And that will then lead into, and that's going to lead into the new Chucky season, the new Chucky series on Sci-Fi that's coming next year. Boom.
Oh boy. Speaking of 90s horror, so Kyle and I watched Event Horizon, which fucking terrifying, by the way, if you have not seen it. I know,
right?
I know it's not technically a slasher, but it's still horrifying.
It's a sci-fi horror, definitely. It's horror
so
from the 90s.
Scary. Like, I remember being younger and my brother would just like put it on and leave it and walk out of the room just so I'd walk in and just have nightmares. And this is before, I became desensitized to all it. But what's the guy's name? He was in Jurassic Park. I can't remember.
Sam Neill.
Yes, thank you, Sam Neill. He's horrifying when he's possessed or whatever. He's just so scary. Eyeballs gone, just flashing you into like your crewmates being it's bad. It's scary. Scary,
Better
scary,
stop
scary.
that now. Copyright.
Do we consider Jurassic Park a 90s horror?
She's
Look,
a clever
it definitely
girl.
had those elements, but I forgot to mention one very important sequel from a franchise that I kind of blocked out.
Okay.
The 90s also saw the eventual release of The Return of the Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
Oh my god, that's right.
Starring Renee Zellweger.
And Matthew McConaughey.
Oh my gosh, yes.
How did we
I actually kind of enjoyed that film.
You enjoyed
It was
because
weird.
of McConaughey.
His
Like, it
robot
was
leg.
crazy. Just, it was a
Robot leg
stupid
crazy.
film, but it was kind of a retelling of the first in a way. Like, it was just all crazy though. Like, really.
Exactly, but that's kind of like the vibe of that 90s thing, is reimagining what had come before in a different way.
Well, everything before Scream was trying to be so serious and just failing, and Scream was just sexy and funny and scary all at the same time, and everyone's like, well, we got to try to replicate that.
Yeah, and that's when we led to I Know What You Did Last Summer, which
is what I watched last night.
But yeah, I think
night?
you've got your three tent poles from that era were Scream,
Yep.
I Know What You Did Last Summer, and to a lesser extent Urban Legend. They're the three that I remember.
Up.
They're the
That
three that I
movie
remember
holds
being big. You know what I mean? Like,
Well,
I'm
did you
looking at
think
the list
I
here,
Know What
but-
You Did Last Summer held up?
Yeah, I thought it was pretty good, honestly. I mean, I have some complaints. And listen,
logical complaint.
And listen, if
It's
you're
just
watching
logic.
this and you haven't seen these movies, come on.
Spoiler.
You're letting me down. Okay, we're gonna have to like splash spoiler alert right there.
With blood all over it.
Well, we don't even have. Oh wait, I can make one.
Okay, well, this is just the note here. Spoiler alert. The fact that they killed off Ryan Felipe, or however you pronounce his name, over Freddie Prinze Jr. is just a travesty. Okay? It's just not fair. I mean, granted...
But a lot of people were arguing too that Sarah Michelle's character was far more compelling and interesting than Jennifer Love Hewitt's boring, bland dishwater.
Well,
Is that a lot of people, or is that you?
No, it's
about
me.
her.
You go and look at all of the fanfics and crap that people did. It's all about
Jennifer
Barry
Love-
and Helen.
no
one
I
cares
think-
about Jennifer Love.
I think Jennifer Love Hewitt. It was
Except me.
at
I
that
love you,
point-
Jennifer Love.
I love you. I love.
Listen,
mate, I have her albums. I am ready to go. She was America's every girl at that point. There's like the sweetheart of Party of Five. She'd been on Kids Incorporated. She'd done all that kind of stuff. She was innocent, and she had those boobies.
I'll
The
give you
movies.
that. She was not a fantastic. When you're comparing Final Girls of the 90s, you're going to compare Neve Campbell to...
She was no
Jennifer Love
Neve,
Hewitt.
yeah.
She was not Neve Campbell.
I don't think she was meant to be either.
And
I
she,
think
she
you're
was.
right. She wasn't. But she also was
I
not...
don't think. I think if you go into every movie expecting every final girl to be like, ooh, like,
Yeah. I mean, I get
I don't
why
know,
they
that's
picked her.
me.
She is just, she's the bookworm. She's virginal. Well, she was virginal.
And let's be honest, they were like, holy crap, a girl from Party of Five just made hundreds of millions of dollars bank. Let's use another girl from Party of Five and try and do it again.
that was the whole point of that era. Everyone that was on the WB got
If
a
you're,
horror
at,
movie.
if
pretty
you're at
much.
like a teen soap or something,
What about Teaching Mrs. Tingle? But that was 2000s technically, wasn't it? I'm pretty
When
sure.
was Disturbing Behavior?
Disturbing Behavior was after, I'm pretty sure, because the only other one that's like
I like
major that I can see on this list is The Faculty.
Oh, the faculty was so good.
Which does hold up. I watched that in the last 6 months.
Disturbing Behavior was 98.
Movie. Oh, okay, there you go.
Underrated.
Yeah, I like that.
Underrated.
Katie Holmes, I like this a lot.
I liked her in that. And I loved The Faculty. That was so good.
The Faculty's still great.
It's still great. But back to Jennifer Love Hewitt. She we got off track here. I see why they picked her. You know, she's traumatized. I mean, they're all traumatized, but she's traumatized and she's trying to overcome her trauma and come out on top. While, you know, Sarah Michelle Gellar is about to settle back into her old life. You know, it looks like she's rekindling her romance with her ex-boyfriend.
But no, she was messed up. She was.
No, I know she was, but you know, you saw them. They're giving each other the eyes and the praise. So he had to die because he was a douche, because most douchebags die in horror movies. It's just what happens. However, I feel like Ray should have gone first. And I stand by this. Even in the second movie, he was still a pussy.
Just Julie saved herself. The whole thing was that she didn't need her boyfriend and she could do without him. And then,
she proved that she was incapable.
But Freddie Prinze Jr., I love you. I loved you in She's All That. I loved you in all the other cheesy chick flicks that you did in the 90s.
Oh.
I don't think you were meant for horror, baby. Just back off. Just step away from the genre.
Well, did his character suck too?
Yes.
His character sucked.
So that kind of wasn't his fault.
Ray wasn't very good.
Ray was not a good character.
Ray was not good. He was meant to be...
And remember, they were trying to frame it like, is he the killer? Is he not? Is he just a good guy? So, like, you know, I think the script weighed that down a bit too. He couldn't just be more compelling or interesting.
Well, even in the second movie, he was just meant to be a knight in shining armor, and he just was not. He was just not. He was just like, he kind of like lucked into every every save.
Bad casting, Bobby.
It was just bad casting. It was terrible casting. Speaking of great casting, let's go over to Urban Legends. That movie holds up. And that was spectacular.
Look, the
lead.
She was I like Alicia Witt. I think she's a fantastic actress and an interesting choice for a lead in a teen horror movie.
I thought she was great.
I thought she was great in it because she wasn't that blonde girl that everyone associates with it, and that was the stereotype.
Tara Reid when she was in her prime.
I don't want
to die. There's another blonde horror movie woman with a great voice.
Neither does your career.
Oh yeah, she was a bit sultry.
Yeah, she's and you know, I think she just should have stayed in the genre because she did great.
Well, did you guys see...
Elephant in the Room. Rebecca Gayheart was amazing.
Spoiler alert. Spoiler
alert. I'm not saying I didn't spoil. I just said she was amazing.
Nope, I'm doing it. Spoiler alert.
She was amazing no matter what happened in the future.
Katie's doing spoilers.
No, I'm spoiling it. She was a she was a spectacular killer. You did not expect that. She was also unassuming, and she was the best friend, and there you go.
Yeah, I remember that one tripping me out in the cinema. I was like, what?
You didn't... And name a lot of horror movies that have female killers, honestly, besides Friday the 13th.
Especially the slasher.
Up till then, there was Debbie Salt a killer by then?
Debbie Salt doesn't exist!
Wait, yes. No, Debbie Salt was before it. But still, you know...
Yeah, it wasn't common, And Debbie Salt was a big shock too. Debbie Salt threw me in Scream 2. I was like...
I was pretty thrown off.
Spoilers, guys. Spoilers.
And Jackie, what are you doing? What are you doing?
Did you guys
Who gives a flying fuck anyway?
all the really bad like the B movies that were copying these A movies at the time? So you had like Teaching Mrs. Tingle, but did you guys see Killing Mr. Griffin with Amy Jo Johnson?
What? No. I guess. Wait, was that a Lifetime movie?
I think it was a TV movie.
So it was probably a Lifetime movie.
Story, but it was dark.
He was trying to be sexy.
Yeah, it wasn't. No, I don't even know if it was trying to be sexy. It was just like the Teaching Mrs. Tingle thing, but like not comedy, like those tongue in cheek. It was just, you know, they kidnap their teacher to try and play a prank.
Wait,
it goes really bad.
I guarantee that was a Lifetime film. Guarantee
was there a Barry Watson? Was he in that?
He was in that. No, he was in Teaching Mrs. Tingle.
Okay, cool. Radio. It's like I see long hair.
No, that was Teaching Mrs. Tingle. That was him.
Okay.
Wait, I'm looking up Killing Mr. Griffin.
Yeah, you gotta look that up.
Okay, so it was a novel by Lois Duncan, who also wrote I Know What You Did Last Summer.
Yeah, there you go.
So they were trying.
Yeah.
They were giving it a go, but they cast Amy Jo as the lead.
I like her. She was one of my favorite Power
She was
Rangers.
cute.
Felicity! When was Campfire Tales, kids?
Oh, that was 97, and I love Campfire Tales, and that had Marsha Brady. What's her name?
Underrated.
Christine.
I went to say Sutherland.
Christine Taylor. It had Amy Smart too.
Yeah.
Ooh,
it was
I don't know if I saw this one.
It's a really good film.
You've got to see it. You'll love it.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if I saw this one. I'll have to watch it.
You will love it. Underrated movies of the 90s.
Is it on anything right now? Is it streaming on anything?
I'm looking. Oh my god, guys, look at how much it's going for on Amazon. Look at that, $89.99.
Yeah, it was great.
That's wild,
Katie. You will be able to find it. Trust me.
Okay,
that's really bad when I do that. Anyway.
I'll try to find it and I'll watch it.
Yeah,
but that was like kind of stripping away the sexy teen thing and making it just going back to those urban legend tales. It's basically the same thing. It's like campfire ghost stories, and I'm not going to say any more because it will ruin the movie.
And I think that's
kind of what for me, but I'll spoil it for everyone.
I think it's kind of what brought it like horror back for that era too, was that they were bringing, because back up until that point they would always cast no names in all of these films, and then they would take off into other things, and that's when they'd be recognized. Like Lisa Wilcox is a prime example. She did Nightmare on Elm Street, but then she was sort of known to mainstream for her other stuff, and I think then when this era come along, they were throwing in all of these, like, the pretty people, the teens that were in the magazines.
Oh yeah, look at that. Like Jennifer Aniston was in Leprechaun. I mean, we talked about Renee Zellweger and Matthew McConaughey. Yeah. Oh my,
girl.
The old Jennifer was in it. And they had Bridget Wilson. She's done already Billy Madison by that point. She'd done, what else had she done?
I'm not sure who I thought she was when I watched it again. Because I was watching it last night, I'm like, oh, that is Bridget Wilson.
Yeah,
and I was trying to figure out who I thought she was. Maybe I thought she was Oh,
she was already Sonya Blade by that point too. By the time she did,
what's an act? Oh, I can't think of her name right now, but she was big in the '90s, and she looks pretty similar. Hold on.
Yeah, blonde. The '90s are pretty much it.
Hold on.
No, I always thought Bridget had like a really
Leslie Bibb. I thought she was Leslie Bibb.
Oh really?
Yeah.
No, I always thought Bridget had a very distinct face.
Well,
like those art shop. Oh, she was in. I watched a movie the other. This is '90s horror too. Okay. So it's called. It's called The Surrogate over here, but I think it's called Sweet Evil in the States. It has like 3 different working titles. She plays a surrogate mother who is crazy, and it's got really good twist. I won't spoil that one actually, if you ever find it anywhere, guys. It took me a while. It's a really cool film though. It was just, and the twist made sense. I wanted her to kill them. I wanted her to kill at least the one she was there to kill.
Oh boy. Well, I think we're kind of going
she took it to other levels, like,
we are going all over the place. We're talking about, I think, probably the one standout that we haven't talked about yet that kind of took off in a big way. And I think it was definitely not a teen horror. It was more for adults. But you've got to say his name.
Candyman. Yeah.
Candyman.
Close enough. Yeah. I still to this day, when I watch that movie and she's in that parking garage, and all you hear is hello.
No.
My skin crawls. I go. I
love that Tony Todd is still popping up in horror movies now, even if they're just like little cameos. He has the most distinct like voice, and you hear it, and it's just like, oh my god, when did Tony Todd get in this film? Like, when did he show up?
We're not going to see it this year now, but it's
disappointing.
Cameo in the new.
I was so looking forward to that.
The storyline,
actually, he was
amazing. Like
It looks beautiful.
The fact that it's a direct sequel to the original is.
I mean, it
I'm ready for it.
It looks beautiful. The story is interesting. I'm ready for it. It needs to just come out.
It was meant to be the Halloween movie this year, wasn't it?
Yeah.
But they've just pushed it
Halloween. So it took Halloween's date. It took Halloween's October 18th release date, and now it's failed as well. So.
Am I going to be the one to say that the new Halloween just wasn't impressive to me? Am I going to be the one to say it? Okay, I'm going to be the one to say it.
I think that's a conversation for another day.
Yeah, okay.
I think that's a conversation for another day.
All right.
I have some feelings. Okay.
Okay, so okay.
Guys, we left out. Like, I know we're saying like 90s slashes, but like we're kind of talking 90s horror. Like Night of the Living Dead, they did the remake in early 90s, and Tony Todd was in in
I'm just telling you.
So, it was amazing. So I really liked that remake.
It's perfect. Because kind of inspired by 90s horror was the Hatchet series in the 2000s.
Yeah.
And he was in that, and he was spectacular.
With Kane, wasn't Kane in it?
And Danielle Harris.
Danielle and Kane were in it, yep.
I've got one for you on this list that we haven't talked about.
Okay.
But it was a great movie.
Okay.
It wasn't necessarily straight out all the way horror, but who doesn't love Idle Hands?
Yes! Yes.
I did love it.
That
was great.
That does not get the credit it deserves. I mean, Devon Sawa.
Seth was amazing in it. He was so funny.
And The Offspring. Come on. It can't get more 90s than that, honestly. I mean, it was so good. And no, I think that absolutely counts as horror. I just, sometimes you just kind of want something a little lighter, but you still want the spoopy. And that's it. It's just, again, it's the camp, but it's still kind of creepy. I mean, that beginning scene where he's discovering that his hand's possessed and his parents are, spoiler alert, dead. It gets creepy at sometimes. I mean, anytime you start talking about the devil, it probably gets a little darker, but.
Yeah, dude, we probably have to do a completely different show on those early 2000s ones, because I'm looking at this list and going,
yeah, we'll have to do that.
Ouch! Oh, ouch! Oh, that was good. Ouch!
It wasn't a slasher, but Stigmata. That was 99.
Oh yeah, I like
that
Stigmata.
movie was amazing.
Patricia Arquette killing it.
Here's my asshole Stigmata.
And
well, we should. I was going to say we should really go back to we should start back at the Scream series. So Scream 1, 2, and 3 were all 90s. I think because Scream 3 pulled it at 99, didn't it?
It was either 99 or 2000.
No. Scream 1 and Scream 3 was 2000.
Oh, okay. Well, we have to watch.
We're going to count it. We're going to count it.
1 and 2.
We'll count 3. It's part of the original trilogy.
Don't count 3.
Don't count 3. Don't count 3.
Well, I try not to count 3 in general because it was terrible. But
do you think those two films though were amazing films? Scream 1 and 2, and that's what.
Scream is one of my favorite franchises of all time because it's got everything.
Well, they say it redefined the genre.
It did.
At the time. Yeah.
Like I said, it resuscitated it. It gave it a little bit of everything you needed because, before people were taking it way too serious and they were trying too hard to get the scares in and it was terrible. I mean, like what we were talking about. I mean, you got a leprechaun running around. You've got a doll running around. Like, how scary is that, honestly?
But yeah, it kind of took everything from those classics, reimagined, and did the opposite. And kind of,
but wrote it clever too. The dialogue was clever, self-aware,
made horror smart again, and kind of took everything out of the way. Because I just found one more that we have to talk about before we finish.
Okay, and then we'll go back to Scream.
And it did not reinvent the wheel, even though it tried to. Actually, it didn't try to at all.
Okay, just go.
The Psycho remake with Vince Vaughn.
Oh, wasn't that a line for line?
Shot-for-shot remake of Alfred Hitchcock, just in colour, with Vince Vaughn and Anne Heche.
Okay.
I was going to say Anne Heche should have done shit was getting bad when her better role was I Know What You Did Last Summer.
Yeah.
I
mean, I would argue that Vince Vaughn does not belong in horror, but then he did the Cell with Jennifer Lopez, and that was spectacular.
And Catherine Sutherland. Catherine was in that too.
Wasn't it Vincent D'Onofrio, not Vince Vaughn?
No, Vince Vaughn was in it too.
Oh.
He wasn't.
Yeah, no, Vince
yes,
Vaughn
Kyle,
was in
that's what we're discussing. The Psycho remake.
Oh yeah. It was disgusting, wasn't it, Kyle?
Yeah, he's nodding. He already knows we're saying it was really fucking terrible. Yes, and like I said,
there's some things you just don't touch. You know what I mean? There's some things you don't touch.
And you know what? And there's probably some things we should never bring up in this stream again, and that's one of them.
Yes. So let's just agree that Vince Vaughn was not to blame in that, because a lot of people blame Vince Vaughn. So I'm gonna go, on the record and say it was not Vince Vaughn. It was not.
It was just a bad idea.
It was a bad idea. I mean,
yeah, because I don't think Anne did bad either. It was just a bad idea that just didn't translate at all.
I don't think they were right for the roles, but I also don't think they were. I don't know.
It just wasn't needed. It wasn't needed.
It wasn't needed.
They had exhausted Psycho by that point. Like, you had, I think they did 5 sequels. Did they do 5 sequels to Psycho?
Some franchises just need to die after too.
The TV show.
Bates Hotel was good. I know that's what you were about to say.
The early TV show pilot they did with Laurie Petty.
I didn't see that one.
The star of it. Oh yeah, it's one of the movies. I can't remember which one it is, but they kind of made the pilot into a movie as well. So before the brilliant Bates Motel, check it out if you haven't seen Bates Motel. Amazing. Yeah. But there was going to be another Psycho series in the 80s. That never took off.
Okay, so big call. What's worse, the Psycho remake or the Curse of Michael Myers?
Oh Jesus Christ, the Psycho remake.
Psycho. At least Curse of Michael Myers had ideas. They may not have floated, they may not have done things, but it tried to.
Have any of you saw or heard of the producer's cut? I have the copy somewhere. Yeah, I've got it. I don't know if
it's on the Blu-ray.
That was the one with Paul Rudd, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Paul Rudd.
He's dreamy.
The man's 50 years old. He looks better than us. Come on.
Should Paul Rudd be in horror?
Yes. Paul Rudd should be in everything. Everything. I love Paul Rudd. He is just
everything and everyone.
Yes.
Oh my gosh.
Yes.
Oh girl.
No, I'm gonna be a slut for Paul
Picking
Rudd.
up Jeffrey's slack here. I think we can basically say that our 90s slashers thumbs up.
I mean, like I said, Scream is one of my favorite franchises. Drew Barrymore's career took a huge amp up with that, and she was barely in it.
From Sugar and Spice in Batman Robin.
I think that role it's career defining. I mean, it was
reinvigorating at least.
The scene was actual pure horror, and it still resonates. My mother remembers that scene, and she just hates horror and won't watch. She always remembers that opening scene from Scream. It's like something you just don't forget.
Well, how terrifying is that? You're sitting at home waiting for your boyfriend. Phone rings. What's your favorite scary movie? I mean,
he's big and he plays football and he'll kick the shit out of you.
Oh, I remember every time the phone rang after that and I was alone, I'm like, I'm not gonna answer it. I'm gonna screen the calls. Oh my god. I was young.
I'm very guilty of coming home after school every day and watching Scream for a long time, literally every day.
I want to say Scream was probably one of the main films to get me into horror.
Yeah, for sure.
Me too. Actually, I was starting to flirt with the Friday the 13th because I was terrified of them as a young kid. And because my brothers were older than me, so they were watching them, and I would hide and not want to see the screen. And then I sort of wanted to watch them. And then when Scream come along, and I was like, okay, I enjoy that, and I want to go back.
I think, it was a lot of elder millennials.
Yeah.
Intro to horror.
Are we really elder millennials?
Yeah, we are technical, yes. Technically we are.
Scream really did the final chase as well. The final girl, the chase scene, they really took that from Friday the 13th.
Mm-hmm.
That's what Wes Craven said. It made people go and do their horror homework.
It did.
Because of the references in it. I know that I hadn't seen the original Halloween by that point.
I knew that. That was the other film that got me into it, was Halloween.
I'd seen number 4 first. That was my first Halloween movie.
It was Halloween, Scream, and not technically horror, but Rocky Horror Picture Show. I was just I gotta start watching horror. I gotta do it. I gotta grow a pair and watch these movies. I will say that I definitely, because horror has so many different subgenres, I have to say that I really kind of stuck with like teen screams and slashers because I thought I could handle them. As I got older, I kind of dabbled into other stuff because, like I said, you know, Event Horizon just scared me for life.
I need to watch that again now because I completely forget Event Horizon. Like I've seen it.
So everyone that's going to watch this, we want you to comment your favorite teen horror, and also ones that you think we should watch.
And before
anything
we wrap
from the 90s, anything from the 90s.
Before
we have to announce our special that we're going to do. It's going to be like a special just for YouTube, and I'm going to have to really try and navigate the copyright of it all. But
let me try.
Katie, what are we doing?
So we're going to scare the shit out of Vera, and we're going to make her watch Scream. Because, as we've discussed over and over again, Scream is just genre defining, and it's one of the best horror movies out there, and Vera has never seen it.
No, well, Vera's terrified of horror movies, she said. So
we're going to scare her.
She's going to make some great content, even if the whole reaction video is just Vera reacting to stuff, and I'll just have her face.
It's going to be
like that
fantastic.
Trump video.
We'll have to ask Vera, what's scarier, Trump or Scream?
Oh, we all know
it.
So before we wrap up our first episode of Uncensored Horror, I'm going to go around the room, and I want you to name your top 3 90s horror. Okay. Try to aim for slashers, but let's just stay in the 90s.
Okay. Try to aim for slashers, but if something's really too good to not,
right? Then, yes. Just stay in the 90s. You're going first.
You'll go first.
Okay. My number 3 would have to be. Oh gosh, what did I really enjoy? Look, I'd have to say my third top slasher of the 90s was Scream 2. I really love Scream 2. My second one was Scream. And my absolute number 1 is like their little ugly sister. I Know What You Did Last Summer, because I just like it was such a character-driven slasher. It was still, I liked it.
All right.
Just for Sarah Michelle Gellar.
All right. All right. You next.
Me?
Week. Yep.
Okay. All right. I'm gonna go controversy here. I'm gonna put I Know What You Did Last Summer third.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I think it's more of a thriller than a horror movie. Like, I wasn't genuinely. The only time I was genuinely frightened in that movie was the Sarah Michelle Gellar
that's
chase
one of the best slasher chase scenes.
That was why like the rest of the movie. I was like, yeah, okay, this is happening.
I would agree with you there. I'd label it more.
I think it's a thriller, not a horror movie.
I would agree with you.
Anyway, for number 2, I'm going to go with Candyman, just for the sheer fact that it was a horror movie. Yeah,
it was a horror movie.
It was horror. It was psychological. It gives you, still to this day, go watch the trailer and tell me that you don't get some kind of little up from it. Like, Tony Todd's brilliant. Judy Madsen's brilliant. Everything's brilliant.
Can I make a really bad confession? I've never seen Candyman, the first one.
I don't know what we're going to do with you. I don't know.
I'm going to watch it here. He's locked out. And then I know that this is against the rules, but I am going for Scream 1 and 2 tied together because technically they're one story.
Okay, fine. No, I'll allow it.
I'll allow it.
I'll allow it.
Yeah. I think Sydney Prescott is up there with Laurie Strode, and I think after this next movie she can take over.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know what I mean? Like,
yep.
They've fucked Laurie around too much. Laurie Strode was the final girl that you could always depend on, and now
she's living more life than a.
They killed her off in H2O. They tried to end her story.
That's what I mean. Sydney's up there. Sydney's my girl. So Scream 1 and 2, beautiful number 1 of horror in the 90s.
All right. So, top 3 is really kind of hard to put in there, and we didn't really touch on this, but I'm still going to throw it in there. Well, that's actually number 2. So number 3, I'm going to go with I Know What You Did Last Summer because it was fun. It was a lot of fun, but it's not super scary. Number 2, we didn't talk about it. I mentioned it, but we didn't really talk about The Craft because Borussia Balk is terrifying.
Yeah.
She is terrifying.
But again, I would probably consider that more of a thriller.
That one's more a psychological thriller, but it has it's horror enough to be classed as horror.
I was pretty spooked by it.
Yeah,
I was creeped out.
It doesn't have a body count or anything so much.
It
There's
does
a few
have a body count, though. You're wrong.
We're all guilty
You're
of wearing a bit of black and doing a few rituals after that movie. But come on,
the craft
we've all been there.
The craft is an aesthetic. Okay, I just want to live that life.
Do you want to be a weirdo?
I am the weirdo, mister. But there is a body count, by the way. You're missing.
Yeah.
Well, I remember Skeet dies.
Oh,
but
Skeet's
who else
dead.
dies?
Skeety's dead.
It's just Skeety, isn't it?
I think it is. Well, unless you count her mother, but she was dead before. Oh no, and the stepfather. The stepfather's dead.
Yeah.
Oh.
Okay.
Number one.
We all know what it is. It's Scream. It can't be anything but Scream. It's too good. And I've said this a million times and I'll keep saying it again, has the best lines in horror. The best lines.
Definitely.
Matthew Lillard, I love you. Please come back in Scream 5. Please. Just give me more gold. Please.
I have
please.
to just preface something. We are missing one extremely big, huge movie, but I would consider it a thriller again. But
and that is...
We are not idiots. We do know that Silence of the Lambs exists. Okay.
Oh.
We will. But I remember we were talking about like genre horror. Silence of the Lambs is a thing of its own. I think it's a psychological thriller. It's a horror. It is like it has horror elements.
I mean, it's horrifying,
but it's not. It's not what we were talking about. We're not. We're talking about popcorn movies here. We're not talking about Oscar contenders.
I would say that was what didn't someone win an Oscar for that? Didn't she win an Oscar?
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying. We're not talking about.
No,
Oscar
I know.
contenders.
I'm just saying, like, I wouldn't call that a horror film. I would call it psychological.
No. Psychological thriller, definitely.
But it's classed as a thriller horror. So
horror movies don't win Oscars. There are some that really deserved the recognition and that never got
we didn't even mention Blair Witch, and we didn't mention a lot of other horrors that were there.
Blair Witch wasn't a slasher. We were originally trying to go for a slasher.
We were talking about slashers, so to be fair,
that's true.
We do know.
But there was the Stepfathers, Maniac Cops, like the sequels of those are all coming out in the 90s, I'm pretty sure. They're all just terrible, though. Like, they were just...
Maniac Cop is fun, though. Let's be real.
So, basically, the general vibe is that we all have a hard-on for Scream.
Yep.
Go watch it. Yep. Watch it with us. Watch us watch it.
Watch it with Vera.
If you're a Scream virgin like Vera, come join us. It'll be fun. But just watch it anyways because it's great and it's the Halloween season and just watch it. And go watch Event Horizon because come on.
If you haven't watched Candyman,
TMC is releasing their
Just one look. No, we're talking about horror movies from the 2000s. Mamma mia. But anyway.
Okay, kids. So next Uncensored Horror will hit on the 2000s since we were just kind of itching to talk about it now.